Hello and welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records in alphabetical order like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. All of my Beatlemaniac newcomers to the channel, not to worry, there will be another Rubber Soul episode coming up shortly. Today's album, though, is the Doobie Brothers' 1978 smash hit, Minute by Minute, and it sounds like this. That's gotta be one of rock's most underrated riffs. That's only side one. The song that we're gonna be listening to today is what I believe to be the best Doobie Brothers song to ever grace this good planet. Now, I know that I said the exact same thing at the top of the last Doobie Brothers episode. Today, quite simply, we're listening to what I believe to be the best Doobie Brothers song that ever did grace this planet. See? But a significant change took place in the band between that album and this album, and that change was a Mr. Michael McDonald. Because of that, I think that this song also warrants the title. And if you don't think that's fair, that's fine, because I'm making this up as I go, so what even are rules? Today's song, of course, is Of course, what a fool believes. So I have this playlist, and it is only songs that make me want to roll down the windows of my car. I say that like it's the 90s. Bzzz, roll down the windows of my car, and scream sing. So let's talk about why Michael McDonald was such a significant contribution to this band. Here are two things that make this a significant change to the band. One, he has a really distinctive vocal. Sounds like his throat is just a little bit bigger than everyone else's. And the second thing is that he is a keyboard player, and that completely transforms the way that you write music as a songwriter. Personally, if I feel like I'm getting in a bit of a songwriting rut, I'll just switch from guitar, my main songwriting instrument, to piano, and what I come up with sounds nothing like the kind of compositions that I might come up with on guitar. And that is because the piano just lends itself to certain chord patterns. I'll show you an example from the introduction of this song. I'll get the piano correspondent to show you how that introduction goes on the piano. Happy to oblige. Pray for me. I just had to pause the camera because I just spent like 10 minutes working out these chords. Here we go. If you're writing songs, you're far more likely, I think, to arrive at this particular chord structure if you're sitting behind a piano as opposed to behind a guitar. So whereas this band used to be well known for these sort of iconic riff-based songs, as evidenced before, there are still great riffs on this album. But Michael McDonald didn't write a lot of them. So this song was a massive hit. It was their second #1 single after Blackwater, which we looked at in the last Doobie Brothers episode. It's wild that these were the only two. But I think this deserved to be a #1 hit because it's such a magnificent piece of songwriting. It is so complicated. You know, like, complicated can be really easy, but complicated and nice to listen to? That's really tricky. I also think this is an interesting song in that they couldn't quite get it right, and they did all of these takes, and eventually, I believe the producer took chunks of the song and Frankensteined them together. And yes, I do mean Frankenstein, the doctor, not the monster, until he came up with this, and the band was horrified that he had done it that way. But I think that's really interesting, because that was, I suppose, a similar approach that George Martin took to Strawberry Fields. And also it's kind of how things are done now. Everything is is comped, which means after you've finished recording all your takes, you go through meticulously and choose the best takes. I think there was an interview where Billie Eilish said that for one of her songs, there were like 80 different takes. I don't know, editor Nancy can do the grunt work here and see if she can find it.
So do you see all of those lines? Those are all
separate
cuts.
audio files that have been put into one take. We got up to like 87 takes.
Take. Different take. Different take. Different take. Different take. And you would never know!
Essentially, that's what the producer did for this song. And the band was like, how could you do this to our beautiful song? That's kind of just standard practice now. And that's not necessarily bad. That doesn't mean that modern music is bad by comparison. It's, I think, a lot to do with the way that the recording industry is structured. Before, a record company would give you money and you would make a record. Now when a label gives you money, it's kind of like a loan that they have given you that you must then pay back in record sales. And if you don't sell enough records, then you owe money to the record company. So for instance, like Fleetwood Mac's Rumours was recorded in 9 weeks. They had 9 weeks to just sit around the studio and do many takes if they wanted to. My band, which is an independent band, we recorded our first album in 5 days.
I didn't know her, didn't love her, but I sacrificed the love that comes and it's still.
That was 3 days for recording the songs, 1 day for overdubs, and 1 day for comping. That album would have cost us maybe $10,000 to make. If you've got weeks and weeks and weeks to perfect an entire live take, then of course you're gonna do that. You really want to be doing things as quickly and efficiently as possible now, and I think that's a big part of the reason that we don't record things the way that we used to. Not good, not bad, just different. Actually, given the option, I would take the 9 weeks and lots of money, but that's just me. Another thing that's unusual about this song is that it came out in a year that was massive for disco. Here are some of the other #1 hits from that year. Disco heavy charts this year. Just for funsies, here's what the song would sound like if it had conformed to the trends of the day. I have nothing against disco, I actually really love disco, but I'm really glad they didn't go in that direction, because I think that the arrangement that they went with is perfect. That does not mean that it's not funky though. Let's dive into the music. A cornerstone of this song's funkiness, I believe, is these jagged, angular stabs that you're getting in the bass of the song. In case you can't hear them, I'll show you where they are. And what makes those stabs funky is that a lot of them are landing on offbeats. So if these are the on beats, here's where those bass hits are landing. Let's blend those together so that you can hear the on-beats and the off-beats interacting with each other. Now let's hear that in a musical context. Piano correspondent, what are those notes? And is it still funky in the chorus? It surely is. You've got the bass rhythm that goes. On top of that, you've got a harmonic rhythm pattern. You marry those two concepts, and they make this. The drums are played very straight because there is all of this movement in the bottom end of the piano and in the chords and then in the vocals. They're all constructing this beautiful polyrhythmic counterbalance. To make sure that that works and doesn't turn into something confusing, the drummer basically has no leeway to do anything out of left field. It's a very standard drum part. You've got a happening on the hi-hat, and you've got just a very basic kick. Boom, 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 boom. And then the snare hits are just every 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? I made a snare drum this week. I can actually play along with the snare this time. It's for the Christmas cover. I'm so proud of that snare drum. I mean, it doesn't look like much. It's got a little tensioning mechanism. We can get into it later, but basically I've been trying to perfect this thing. This thing right here, this humble little percussion instrument for like 3 years. I've tried so many different types of snares and anyway, this isn't very interesting. Let's go back to the Doobie Brothers. With other songs, it's often the drums that make it kind of funky, but while the drums in the song allow it to be funky, it's not where the funk is coming from necessarily. I really love that about the song. Jam break! Oh, I love this song so much. This is a perfect point to really dig into some of these vocals. I think Michael McDonald's vocals are what he's really known for. I feel like you can instantly hear if he's on a recording. He was a massive session and touring musician. You can often hear his voice in other people's music. Recordings by people like Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, Steely Dan, who's actually also a touring musician for them. And he believes that he got that job because he could, and I quote, sing like a girl. So he got all of the high parts that the others couldn't do. Here's his backing vocal on the song Peg by Steely Dan. Okay, now, Editor Nancy just woke up, so be kind. Back to you. Back to you. Actually, he's doing at least 2 backing vocals on that track. Here's another one. Back to you. Back to you. Then shutter falls all in 3D, foreign movie, or something like that. Again, it's early in the morning. And as a total tangent, seeing as I've fallen off this wagon entirely, he's a big part of the Steely Dan verse. If you have a Venn diagram that is like Michael McDonald and Steely Dan, there's a massive amount of overlap in the middle. For instance, the guitarist on this track is Jeff Skunk Baxter, who played some incredible guitar solos on Steely Dan tracks. Or like if you listen to the introduction of Open Your Eyes on this album, you can really hear their influence on each other. I enjoy that. Steely Dan aside, and I do hate to put Steely Dan aside, but we will return. It'll be a while from now, but we will get there. A thing that I love about Michael McDonald's voice is that he slips seamlessly between head voice and chest voice. Head voice is like, whereas chest voice is more like, ah! For most of us mortals, there is a natural break in our voice, and you have to switch from one to the other in order to get over that break. I think it's called a passaggio. For instance, mine is here. The break is the bit where your voice breaks and sounds embarrassing, especially if you're filming yourself and broadcasting over the internet. The lengths I go to for you lovely people. Unlike me, Michael McDonald seems to have no problem moving between those two things. You can hear it really well in the bridge of this song. I'll point out whether he's using head voice or full voice, chest voice. These are high notes for a man, and he doesn't even sound like he's straining. Anybody else would surely know. Some of these notes are at the upper end of my range. And granted, I don't have a huge range, but he's just breezing through it. His vocal delivery on this track is nothing short of angelic. Also, just listen to how pretty his vocal sounds on G. Just that tiny little run, he executes so effortlessly. It is so pretty. So pretty. Oh, it's so delicate, so expertly navigated. Beautiful work, Michael. Beautiful work. The amount of control that this man has. And like, And he's got a lovely kind of subtle vibrato. Editor Nancy, how would you define vibrato?
Oh, I wouldn't. I would ask my sister to demonstrate it with her impressive whistling skills.
Is that good enough?
But yeah, listen to his vibrato on the word rise. It gives his voice just that much more texture, and this is a very textured voice. There's a lot going on in this man's vocal cords. This song gets a lot of points in the vocal delivery. But also, what incredible chords it has! It's time for my favorite moment in any Vinyl Friday. Chord time! So I sort of started to get into before. When you make the switch from a guitar to a piano, one of the things that becomes accessible to you all of a sudden is that you can split up chords. The piano correspondent will now explain to you what it means to split a chord. If you want to play a C major chord, you play C on the bottom, and you play C, E, and G on top. On guitar, that's relatively straightforward. On piano, that's relatively straightforward. However, on a piano, you can easily change what the bass note is doing, and that changes how the chord feels. For instance, listen to this. Or this. Or even this. That is like a really easy cheat or a hack for an unaccomplished pianist. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That means that you can do really interesting things with music without the barrier of a learning curve, because complex chords suddenly become completely accessible to you, and that is not something that is so easy to execute on guitar. It also means that you can explore all of these interesting rhythmic patterns that move between all of these split chords. This song is a great example of that, isn't it, piano correspondent? It definitely is, yes. Throughout the song, there is this recurring rhythmic motif that goes like this. But the chords are shifting underneath it. Very difficult to do on guitar. Not impossible, I've seen it done, but it is difficult, so like this. So when you combine that idea of splitting chords with this rhythmic pattern thing, I mean, I'm not going to say it's really easy, but it's much easier to do this on piano than it is to do on guitar. When you combine the easy accessibility of the piano to non-players with the rise of synthesizers in the late 70s, you get an awful lot of songs that have patterns very similar to this. Which means that this is the second week in a row that I get to call for a montage. Let's call this one a late 70s, early 80s, keyboard-based, split chord, rhythmic pattern montage! You know, I promised I would come back to that transcendental modulation, so let's do that now. This might be the best part of the song, or maybe everything else I've mentioned so far could be the best part of the song. Maybe everything about this song is exceptionally nice. For most of the song, we hang out around here, or maybe here. One of those. It's that vicinity. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere at the chorus, we end up in this sort of land. And it all happens at the end of the bridge, right here. Woo-hoo, that's a good chord. And then this. So from this, we go here. They're nothing alike. They don't fit together. They're just in totally different neighborhoods, and Michael McDonald has gone, you and you. Make friends. Our ears are like, yes, this is a beautiful friendship. What a lovely transition. See, when you take that modulation that just elevates the song and you pair it with these wild falsetto harmonies, song absolutely stellar. Last week we looked at a song that was just good solid songwriting, not flashy, not showy, just content to be a solid song. This song, on the other hand, the vocals are impressive, the chords are impressive, the delivery of those chords is impressive. I'm not the greatest piano player in the world, but I think that this song is difficult to play on piano. Across 52 Vinyl Fridays, this was the hardest piano part for me to work out. I fully spent like 90 minutes this morning just working through this part so that I could record these 5 minutes of footage. You're welcome. When you take into account that the left hand is syncopated differently from the right hand, and then add to that that he could play this and sing it live. This is a stunning musician. I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves. My last little Michael McDonald fact is that he's experienced a sort of late career resurgence recently and is really cool. Good for him. He's done a bunch of collaborations with new artists recently. Like, here, let's ask Wikipedia. Grizzly Bear.
Make it all worthwhile.
And Thundercat.
Michael McDonald.
Wake up and dream.
This man is only 71 years old. A spring chicken. Here's a young person who's obsessed with him.
Guess where we're going? We're gonna go see the Doobie Brothers. Do you know who the Doobie Brothers lead singer?
Michael McDonald?
Yes, he's here.
Wait, what?
Yeah. You wanna go see him?
Yes.
Let's go, right now.
I love you, Michael! I do. It said thank you to me.
That's everything about this album for today. Two things before I go. The first is that Vinyl Friday's first birthday is coming up, and I know that we've just done a special episode for the 50th anniversary, but you know, 52 weeks, 50 episodes. Between that and like nearing 1,000 subscribers, I'm not quite there yet, but anything can happen. I was thinking I might do a special Q&A episode. So this week's question is, do you have any questions for me? I hope I'm not being I hope I'm not misreading the room and being really self-indulgent here. And then of course after that we've got the next track on Rubber Soul, which we are thankfully still working our way through because I'm really enjoying this side 2 experience and truly I don't want it to end. And then we've got the Christmas covers coming out. Speaking of, the previous hints that we've had, it's a Beatles song. It took 45 hours to record. It featured a lot of instrumental input from George Martin. And today's hint is that it has been covered by Richie Havens, Ben Harper, Todd Rundgren, among many others. So I will neither confirm nor deny, but cast your guesses. That's it for me. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to support any of the weird things that I do, I'll leave a link in the description for my Buy Me a Coffee page where you are welcome to make a donation, but you are not obliged. No pressure, my friends. Thank you very much to everybody who has made donations in the past and recently. I will be taking the recent earnings to a record fair this weekend where I will be buying more episodes, effectively. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! She had a place in his life.